All right. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you. First of all, thank you everyone for coming by for the video. Rise of the Field Fillers episode 2 is now live. If you were, thank you so much, of course, first of all, everybody who was in the premiere, really just blown away by how much excitement there was about this. And I think maybe it had something to do with a lot of the rain days we had this week, but I definitely wanted to make sure to get that out as soon as possible because I really enjoyed doing episode 1. And very thankful for everybody's support, both in the Patreon and in the YouTube channel. There had a great chat. Hopefully, you guys can hear me. Did I turn this thing on? Okay, I think I turned it on. So hopefully, we should be okay on that. But thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. I'm just going to share the link here, and we'll definitely talk about the video and everything else along the way. I'm just going to make sure we got the link to the live stream in here. I'll tell you what, yeah, I appreciate you guys staying tuned with me here. I originally set that for 5 o'clock, and when you know the cup race is getting pushed later and later in the day, and I was thinking I was going to have to make it more like 6 o'clock, but I just moved it to 5:15. And again, for those of you who missed out on the preview there, absolutely, it's now live. You're free to certainly check that out. I'm very pleased with the response so far, and I think it should give you a good idea about where I'm going to be going with this series going forward. And we'll cover some more action from there. Let me just type this in here in the chat. Live stream is now on. Join and link drop right. Make sure that goes through just fine. Are we good? I think we're good. Okay. Hang on. There we go. Get that link off of there. So yeah, I mean, a lot of people to really thank on that project, for sure. And you'll see this in the comments there. First and foremost, Dave Lawrence over at RacingUnderdog.com. I hope that this may be a way that I could track him down and actually do an interview with him. Because back when I was in college, that site was just taken off. I was a junior in college during 2004 and wasn't running NASCAR at the time. I didn't start that site till 2009, but was, of course, still enjoying the smaller teams back then. And Dave Lawrence and his job, that the website he started, very simple, like GeoCities kind of page with RacingUnderdog.com, provided some great coverage. And a lot of that is going to be featured in future episodes as we talk more about these teams going further along in this season. Baker Racing picks for all those fantastic pictures from Riverside in the 80s, the rare championship start and park pictures there. I mean, had those not been in his collection, it would have been very hard to describe those things without showing them in there. So fantastic for him. And of course, Dave W. and his fantastic YouTube channel. I highly recommend checking him out. There's a link to the videos that were used in the YouTube video. I still need to update it and get some more content on there. But his qualifying broadcast, absolutely essential in this. And then, of course, tracking the season review. That's going to be kind of the strategy moving forward on future episodes. So them, of course, and also the Scene Vault podcast, would be remiss without mentioning them. The interviews they had both with Shelmerdine and Brett Bodine, of course, figured pretty big into the script as well. And the rest of the sources are also cited in the credits there as well. So again, yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in on this. And Beast of Metal, thank you so much for the super chat leading off here. Maybe JJ Yaley did a rain dance to help his part of RWR. Too bad no one did an anti-definition of insanity dance for Chase. Well, you know, a little bit of everything here. I'll tell you what, I had to bring out the number 27 shirt again here. And I think probably if you look forward here, JJ Yaley is probably going to be the most prepared for Martinsville this weekend compared to everybody else that's still kind of recovering from 4 days of or 3 or 4 days of being down in Fort Worth. The Rick Ware team had the wreck on Sunday. They loaded up and got out of there Sunday night while everybody else was waiting for the race to finish. And we'll see how things shake out on that. You know, and that'll be interesting this weekend in Martinsville. We'll certainly talk about that as well. But I'm very excited about this series with the Rise of the Field Fillers series. This is really going to be the way that the series is going to go. Is there going to be very much features on teams? It may kind of alternate into teams and drivers at a point there. That was really the challenge that came up when I was writing this as a book. It was very difficult to organize in such a way that it would be easy to show, you know, the kind of going over the season, you know, from one time to the next. One thing that's interesting, and you may have sensed this already from this episode, there was a lot of field filler news at the beginning of the year, and then it kind of tapers off towards the end of the season. And that itself is going to be discussed during this as well. So it kind of lends itself to reviewing the 2004 season through the perspective of multiple different teams. And some of them you may have already noticed. I saw in the chat already tonight a lot of discussions already about other teams that were around that year or other teams that were developing at that time. For those of you who've seen the video, I won't spoil it for those of you who haven't. You can see which team is going to be talked about next, and the script has already begun on that, and that'll be episode 3. The turnaround on these, it kind of depends. This one was much longer than I thought it was going to be. I thought this was going to be about half an hour. It turned out to be about 50 minutes. But you can see why is the only field filler that actually did all 36 races in the Cup Series season. Every other team we're talking about in this, they either did close to the full season or just a portion of it here. And it's not really organized by the number of starts, but it's going to be kind of shaken up that way. We're going to have some, and you're going to have some episodes that are going to be a lot shorter because they ran so few races, and others they're going to be a bit longer. So we'll figure that out along the way. But this next one, I think is going to be very interesting as well. And I think it'll be a good follow-up with everything here as well. So stay tuned on all of that. And again, thank you so much, everyone. First, of course, for your support on the video. Make sure you share that link. And I thank you again to the people who just joined the Patreon this week. Tremendous help on that as well. I know not everybody is able to do that, but I appreciate anybody who can. If you're unable to do that, sharing the links to these videos and making sure other people see them, that's the best way to help out the channel and what I do over here on this side here. And I'm very pleased with the response on this series so far. I think this is probably something that I probably should have done sooner, but it didn't really occur to me until really these last couple of months that it would lend itself much more to being a series than a book. Although, again, this is, to be clear again, I do have another book in the works, and that one is still, very much on track. We're just still trying to get the publisher deal worked out on that end. So it isn't replacing that. That one's already on the cusp of that. But this one here, I think will be a good kind of thing to alternate between working on getting that finished and getting some more content for you guys on this channel as well. Looking to get some more content as well for the folks in the Patreon, and we'll have some more information on that along the way as well. So, yeah, so absolutely a lot to definitely talk about. I definitely made sure to grab my Mountain Dew Code Red here in the meantime. I had to hustle back from work. I knew I set it up for 5 o'clock, and when the race was running down, it's like, well, is it going to end at 5 o'clock? Is it going to end like just before it? Figured there were probably going to be some cautions at the end. End up just getting pushed 15 minutes or so. So I appreciate you guys again bearing with me on that. And we'll certainly go into that. So JJ Yaley, yes, is your last place finisher. The article ended up being written about 90% of it on Sunday. Of course, just waiting for the bottom 5 finishers and any other surprising runs in this. That ended up, of course, being defined through the rest of the race today, whether it was Bubba Wallace and Matt Kenseth's accident towards the beginning of this that ended up collecting Denny Hamlin a bit, and apparently Hamlin struggling a bit afterwards, much like Kevin Harvick's struggles that started from Sunday when he fenced it at the early laps when it was misting and then continuing to mist. And then JJ Yaley ultimately taking last place instead. So, going to be an interesting story. The article for the last place feature for the Cup Series race will be posted later tonight. Shouldn't be too much longer after the show here because, like I say, not too much more to add to it. But I'm still kind of figuring out when the weekend preview article will be posted. If I don't get around to it tonight, we'll post it up on Friday, and we'll have that available for you guys to get ready for the Halloween weekend in Martinsville, which is going to be here very quickly now that we're already past hump day here. And we'll find out what happens from that standpoint too. So, yeah, that's going to be really, that's going to be kind of a thing to go into. Lots to talk about from the other divisions. Let me get the results here. Have to say, again, I know not everybody's a Kyle Busch fan and everything, but it is cool. One of the other drivers I followed growing up was Ricky Rudd. And one of the biggest memories I had was when he won that Martinsville race in 1998 and had the streak of 16 consecutive victories with 16 consecutive seasons with at least one win. And the fact that he did those last few seasons of that streak as an owner driver, I thought was even more impressive after he went and started his own team in 94. But the fact that he was able to keep that going, he won the Brickyard around that time in 97. And that was really towards the end of his career. He ended up kind of revitalizing himself a bit over Robert Yates Racing, but there were a couple of years in between where he didn't win anything until I believe it was June of 2001 at Pocono. But then, you think with Kyle Busch, it's hard to think of him in that same framework as a veteran that's been out there a very long time, winning in 16 consecutive seasons in his own right. And it seems like, the man just won the championship last year. He's still very much, a threat in any of these races. I know that PRN was talking about him only leading about 500 laps this year coming into this race versus the about 1,500 that Kevin Harvick's led, for example. Definitely been an off year for him. He's made it very clear how much he feels about that and how frustrated he's been by it. But it's perhaps appropriate that he wins in the zombie Skittles car, coming his championship hopes coming back from the dead, although he's already eliminated in that sense, but at least getting a victory to round out the season and see how things turn out. But of course, pending the results of the disqualification results, we'll see what happens on that end. Things could be a toss-up completely. We, of course, had the issue with Martin Truex back on Sunday with a rear spoiler issue, and then ended up getting the order shuffled at that point. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to get with that situation too, but that'll be something here. Martin Henderson, Rusty Wallace won 16 straight too. Did he do that also? I remember him doing 15 straight. I didn't remember his 16 straight. I thought he had a winless season that messed it up, but that was definitely another one. It doesn't surprise me that he was right up there too. But okay, 86-01. Oh yeah, I guess 2001 he won California. Okay, so that would okay. There would be that. I will admit, I was never a really big Rusty Wallace fan. So, I think it's physically impossible to pull for Ricky Rudd in any capacity and also be a Rusty Wallace fan, especially when the one race you go to is Sears Point, where they were clashing all the time, really to the end of their careers as two of the best drivers up there. And that was always kind of the challenge in that standpoint. So, but yeah, if we're talking 86 to 2001, that would fit right in there. All righty. Let's see here. Did we talk about Christopher Bell yet? Have to talk about him. Christopher Bell, fantastic run. Really sounded like, listening to the PRN broadcast I was hustling back this afternoon, that Bell had one of the fastest, if not the fastest car towards the end of that, especially during the last round of pit stops. Sounded like he was really getting something going there. Best run that we've really seen of him all the year. He had some runs earlier this year. I mentioned him back at New Hampshire and again at Las Vegas, where it seemed like he was having going to be a factor in the finish there. Unfortunately, got involved in incidents in both those races that took him back further back in the order and don't really reflect on how well he had done. And then, of course, he was featured on our site back at Talladega when he had an incident on the very first lap and dropped out at that point. So it's been, a little bit of everything. And then, of course, back at Fontana, the last time we covered a race in person, he was last in that one. So it's definitely been a hot and cold rookie campaign for him. Of course, Cole Custer already locking it up by being a winner that already moved on to the playoffs. But great run for them there. One of their best runs, not quite their best finish. Of course, Matt DiBenedetto's second place finish at Bristol last year would be their best, pending, of course, the results from technical inspection. But great to see a great run and in that particular paint scheme, the one back in 2011. The old Lightning McQueen Sam Bass paint scheme, gorgeous looking car. I remember when they started back in 2011 or 2010. Well, now I say I remember it. I'm not getting the year right, but back then with David Starr starting the team back up and them just trying to get their feet back under them there on the 95 team. They've come a long way. They may not have that win. They only have 2 shots left to actually, go for it there. But, good to see them get that good of a run there. And again, at their home track. And it's going to be very much, it's going to be sad not seeing Bob Levine out there, much like with the Germain Racing team shutting down at the end of the year. I know there's a lot of excitement about what's coming up. And, of course, the big news today with Kyle Larson bringing back the car number 5 at Hendrick, which I'm a huge fan of bringing that number back because that is Hendrick in my mind. That was the iconic number. It doesn't feel right it being out there. And getting rid of the 88, that was just brought on for Junior. And that, to me, still feels like a Robert Yates number to me. I was never really a big fan of the number 88 being on Hendrick's team, but, it is what it is. And that's just how these contract deals worked out back then. They say tech was over already. Okay, well that was quick. Well, I guess it's already been more than an hour since the video came out. So that would be a different deal there. So okay, so it sounds like we will have a JJ Yaley article for tonight, and that is a-okay with me because I'd hate to just have to delete entire paragraphs of that. Well, I usually don't delete that much of it. I basically just say, however, this happened, and then just add that to the end. But it sounds like that's the situation. Yes, Bob Pockris posting a minute ago. No issues in tech. Kyle Busch, the winner. Newman, Blaney, Boyer cars all had one missing or loose lug nut, which is a monetary fine. Okay, so with that, we head into Martinsville and the final cutoff race in the championship. And because there were no issues in technical inspection, it means also that the LASCAR championship is still up for grabs in the Cup Series. Since Yaley finished last and he was further back in the rankings, Timmy Hill still holds a one last place finish lead over Ryan Preece. And so the battle will go down to Hill or Preece coming into Martinsville next week. Stephen Light is in an even better position to lock up the Xfinity title in another motorsports business management car next week. I believe if anybody behind him in the rankings doesn't finish last in that one, I think it's actually Timmy Hill after his run in this past race. It's going to be very close in that sense. Even Hill has been in a position to potentially get both those championships at the same time. BSML 1989, thanks again for the other super chat here. I'm cool about the 5 being back, but not the driver. So yeah, again, mixed feelings, I'm sure. But the 5 is a big history with it. The Kyle Larson situation that's been well publicized plenty of times. It's. I'll take Kyle Larson being talked about much more as a Cup Series driver rather than the hype constantly over him dominating in dirt track races that, of course he would win, but everybody's acting like, wow, he's winning all these races. It's like, well, yeah, no kidding. But I don't know. That's a whole other thing. We'll do trivia in a little bit here. No tires, just gas. Just want to make sure we touched on everything for this weekend because we didn't really talk about the Xfinity or Truck Series races this past weekend. Let's see. Just checking the Cup results again before I go back into all of that. John Hunter Nemechek, 22nd. Kind of looking to see any other surprising runs. Matt DiBenedetto sounded like he was getting a lot of radio time earlier. Ends up in the 8th place finish there, but Christopher Bell definitely flying the flag for the underdogs in that one. And kudos to Texas for getting that race in too. I know it's been said by plenty of other people. Tremendous effort for them getting that race in. I really didn't expect that they were going to. And I fell for it a couple of times when they said that they were actually going to be running it, whether it was going to be late last night or, middle of the day or anything like that. Those people that were working on that and just staying out in those jet dryers and literally watching pavement dry, had got to be a tedious but absolutely invaluable job out there. And what they were able to accomplish waiting this out is tremendous. And I know there were a lot of concerns coming into this, and rightfully so, about whether or not they're going to get this in, if they're going to have to move it somewhere else in the schedule. And of course, the playoff system doesn't really allow for that because Martinsville has positioned themselves as being the cutoff race before Phoenix. And Phoenix has, of course, been promoting since last year being the championship round. So you have a real tight window to work with. But luckily things worked out at least well enough that they not only got, at least past halfway or stage 2, but actually got the full distance in. And kudos to Texas also for rewarding the fans that stuck it out there all the way through Wednesday. I'll tell you what, this is an event that I was looking at covering, coming into this year, boy, it would have been real challenging to stretch that out. I don't have enough time off that I could use to stretch that well past that there. So it was probably for the best that I didn't do that this season. But that's one that we're looking at maybe next year. Maybe the All-Star race, maybe in November, hopefully under better weather conditions. We'll see what things look like. That's kind of a plan that we have looking a bit further down the line on that. But yeah, it was, it was good to see. It's good to see. I mean, again, Eddie Gossage and the folks over there at Texas, apparently their hospitality is fantastic. I mean, and kudos to the media members that stuck it out too. Well, was it only Jerry Jordan by today? I think it was. Like they basically, I know it was yesterday. So kudos to him and any other local reporters that were staying out there and providing updates. And it was interesting listening on my lunch break to the radio traffic from the track dryers and stuff. Kind of reminded me back of Daytona, back when they were trying to hustle, getting that through back at the time there. But unheralded work, but definitely important work, and they definitely deserve a real pat on the back. And I hope the rest of their week they at least get a day off. I would hope to enjoy, kind of recover from everything from that. So kudos to them. And, a decent race. And, certainly Kyle Busch was happy that it kept going. Looked like it was going to be a Clint Boyer win at some point. How about that? Right after Chase Briscoe's locking up the number 14 team, that he would potentially pull off the win there. Unfortunately, the pit strategy didn't work out very well. Kind of shades of like Carl Edwards when he tried to stretch the fuel. I think it was in 2008. He tried to go about 69 laps and was coasting across the track. There's no way like 76 laps was going to work at the end of that one. But kudos to Boyer for trying. Had a great showing out there. He ended up a bit further back in the order, 17th in the results, but 89 laps led, just one fewer than Kyle Busch at the end of the day. I know we don't have the bonus for most laps led anymore, which is kind of a shame, but still everybody knew that he was there today, so that's good to see there at the same time. All right. But lots to check out from there. So we'll touch on the Xfinity and the Truck Series races as well. It feels like a lot longer ago than just past this past Saturday and first part of Sunday morning. First of all, fantastic run for Harrison Burton pulling off the victory there. I know Noah Gragson has, rubbed people the wrong way, or in Burton's case in particular, gotten into all-out fisticuffs at that one point earlier in the season. It really didn't look like Burton was going to catch up there at the end of the race. But then he sure did. He drew up on him there and not only got around him, but won the race by open track, which was impressive. But this is just one of many of the stories here in the field. Got to talk about the underdogs in this one. Been chomping at the bit to talk about these guys since Saturday. Brandon Brown with the 5th place finish. May not be in the playoffs anymore, but a fantastic run for him, the Brandon Built team. Career best for them. Ryan Vargas, the photo finish with him and Josh Williams. Great job by the individual that saved that on video and put that online, because I had saved screen caps of the intervals at the end, and I saw that it was less than less than a tenth of a second between the 6 and the 92. The TikTok car getting in the 8th spot there. Vargas, good kid. Good to see him get a good run, and so early in his career. Only his 10th start. Fantastic there for him, and the Johnny Davis team too. Anytime Johnny Davis's team gets screen time, that's certainly one to talk about. Have to talk about Williams himself. I mean, Josh Williams, this latest stretch, it's hardly been talked about, but really in these last few races, he's been a top 10 machine. Was going to at the Roval again, got in a wreck about midway through the race, but he wrecked out of the top 10. Maybe if we had, different circumstances slightly, he would have been on a streak that they would have really had to pay attention to. And now, of course, this weekend, the DGM racing team's got some great Halloween paint schemes. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing those on the broadcast. Tommy Joe Martin's top 10 finish, 10th place finish for him. Fantastic for that. Given everything, you talk about a guy that's dealt with some adversity this year. And, even further back in his Truck Series team, his first foray into the Xfinity Series years ago when he was running Dodges with Willie Allen and everybody. Great turnaround for him. Absolutely, great performance for him. Got around LeBay in the final laps, pulled open track ahead of him there, so that the footage, I think Brad Perez actually posted it, so kudos to him for showing the footage of Martin's coming across the line in 10th. I would have loved to be on pit road and talk to those guys there. I'm really missing coming out there to these events. I would have loved to be there for that, because those were fantastic for all of them. And for Bailey Curry, further back in the 12th spot, career best for him. Continuing this Mike Harmon racing story is one of the best stories that nobody's talking about. And much like we had with Brandon Brown and Gray Galding last year, outperforming in the Xfinity Series, the Mike Harmon team this year, along with DGM, have really just stepped it up this season. And as we've seen Brandon Built and Ryan Sieg's team kind of get up there on a more regular basis, to the point where you have to kind of remind yourself that these are career best runs. Mario Gosselin's team and Mike Harmon's team have just really turned up the wick. And for Harmon's team, the fact that they've lost a lot of their equipment still after that theft after the Daytona Infield Road Course, and they're still outperforming, really says something about their endurance out there. And kudos to them for sure. Kyle Weatherman, not that much further back in the 19th spot there after starting 36th and last on the grid. So great job by him as well. By all accounts, it sounds like they're still going to do the diecast release for the 47 after his top 10 over at Kentucky. I hope they do after that finish there, because that's definitely something that when you get a new studio set up, I want that to kind of feature prominently in the setup on that. So I'm hoping to hear back on that in a little bit. But your last place finisher was Timmy Hill. Fell out in the early laps with engine problems, and it is going to be a teammate battle between Hill and Light going into the race at Martinsville. Hill his only path to the championship in the Xfinity side is to finish last at both Martinsville and Phoenix. Not an impossible task, but Stephen Light could lock it up this weekend if either Light or some other driver finishes last in that race. And do I have certificates set up for that? Oh, you bet you I do. May not be there in person for Phoenix this year, but we're going to do something on that. And again, great for, it's unfortunate that Stephen Light is, had a lot of the last place finishes this year. But again, one story that on his side that hasn't been talked about a lot is how much he's outperformed on the road courses this year. A lot of the last place finishes he's had just from running start and park efforts on that side. When they let him run the full race, he can get about 20th, 21st in that equipment too. And that really points to how well MBM has improved there. They may have a lot of mechanical issues, especially on the Cup Series side, which is what's put Timmy Hill in the lead in the Cup Series one, ahead of Ryan Preece on that one. But a different situation there in that sense too. Would have been interesting to see. We'll see what happens with Timmy Hill as well. But we may have a couple of certificates that need to get printed out this next week here. And we'll get ready for that. On Halloween weekend, we'll find out what happens on that. But again, great finish there for Harrison Burton, Noah Gragson. We saw a lot of emotion in the post-race interviews on both ends of the spectrum. Gragson's disappointment, dropping an F-bomb on the broadcast there. I mentioned, and then Junior was very quick to mention himself, of course, his penalty back in 2004 for saying the S word on broadcast TV. Apparently different rules or different time period here when it's on cable television. No penalties for Gragson in that sense, but Gragson's still in a very difficult position going into Martinsville to try to make the championship 4. Not impossible. We haven't seen the Xfinity Series run Martinsville since 2006, but that's going to be an interesting story in and of itself, and he will certainly be one to watch. I think he's actually on the front row, isn't he, in qualifying now that they have the lineup set. Bizarre incident for Chase Briscoe. The mechanical issue he had at the beginning of the race there after a tire went down. Shades of his issues over at Homestead, where he lost multiple laps from the start and had to come back from that. But in this one, still a 24th place finish, decent salvage job, although he'd already made it to the next round there handily over in Kansas. But on the other end of the scale, Ryan Sieg, heartbreaker for him. Unfortunately, you'd like to believe that as many of these teams can get up there and do the best they can. Sieg had a great run at Las Vegas, was relaxed coming into Texas. Seemed like he was not going to put a whole lot of stress on himself. But again, a very difficult situation in Martinsville. We've seen a lot of races this year, even up to just last few weeks, where again, Sieg has somehow, some way, found himself on the front row trying to pull off a victory, much like we've seen Matt DiBenedetto do on the Cup Series side. Martinsville, is that going to be the opportunity that they can take to actually get to the next round? Can they steal away a win there? Maybe from somebody like a Noah Gragson or a Ross Chastain or something like that. That's going to be interesting to see. Chastain, I thought, was very upfront when he interviewed about his wreck afterwards. It did seem like that was a very bizarre one. I would have liked to see something very similar to that from Justin Allgaier after his incident at Kansas before. I thought that was a much more crazy and aggressive move for him than what Chastain pulled off. Although Chastain was still pretty aggressive. I mean, he's definitely had more than his number of toes that he stepped on over this time. I was much more heartbroken for Jeremy Clements, who got caught up at the tail end of that wreck, almost had it cleared, and then a couple cars hooked together. One of them spun in his path, and that was the end of that. Not mentioning again at the exact same time for the Xfinity Series, I didn't mention Anthony Alfredo, the emotion he had, shades of Rich Bickle at 1998 at Martinsville. We mentioned the Ricky Rudd win. Another story of that was Rich Bickle's 4th place finish and him saying that famously that this was winning to him. Kind of reminded me of Anthony Alfredo kind of letting it wash over him, realizing that he's not only just living his dream as a competitor in the Xfinity Series, but actually being able to do great runs and just being completely blown away by that. I know he drives one of the best cars out there in Richard Childress equipment, but after having the flip just last week in the aforementioned Allgaier accident and getting a good run out there today, I think he gained a lot of fans out there, and good to see him get some good runs. And we'll see what things look like for him next year and beyond from that. So we talked again about a lot of the great runs throughout the field here. We talked about Timmy Hill in the last car championship that's developing at Martinsville. Timmy Hill did finish last in the June race at Martinsville, which he actually wasn't a good indication of how well that team had been running. They were about in the top 20 in that June race before they had fuel pump issues. We've seen a lot of electrical issues, especially on these small teams, and especially after getting rid of practice and qualifying. I think we've talked about this a lot on past shows. Could potentially be another issue as we get into this championship cutoff race next week, and that's going to be a problem moving forward. Hopefully not for them, but it could be a situation. A lot of adversity in these races, and a lot of races where drivers are dominating. Martin Truex and Brad Keselowski have figured out how to just completely crush the field under their heel these last couple of years. And it's amazing how dominant they have been. The only other driver that's been in their zip code in these last few races seems to be Chase Elliott, who was the only one that was able to keep Brad Keselowski leading from flag to flag a couple of years ago in the spring race. Now in a situation where Chase didn't have that good of a run today in Texas and trying to make something happen, can he do it? Truex, after not pulling off the victory against Kyle, he's going to be strong this weekend. Not a guarantee, of course. Chase, in himself in that same sense. If memory serves, he had an axle fracture last year that kept him from making a late season push after he slipped. Victory at Kansas slipped through his fingers. But that's going to be an interesting thing to look at coming up there. Yes, Jeremy Clements does have a sick ride for Martinsville, Sir Rinkelstein, correct. Some great paint schemes coming up there. Very excited to see how it's going to look coming up there. Have to talk about the Truck Series race as well, and of course we have to talk about Ben Rhodes. Kamikaze Games and apparently Ultimate 23 Dragon. I haven't seen your video yet, but I know Kamikaze was mentioning it too. I'm sure the both of you have covered it a lot better than I would already. It did seem like in that first incident that there was a little bit of just he and Todd Gilliland are both pretty aggressive. I think one zigged and the other zagged, and it could have just as easily taken the both of them out. That situation with the 18, though, was extremely dangerous. I think that could have been a much more serious accident than it was. It's surprising, given that this is the track where Eckes's team owner, Kyle Busch himself, was suspended after getting in that wreck with an intentional wreck under caution with Ron Hornaday. This one happening under green off of turn 4. It was good under NASCAR safety advancements there that this didn't turn into a Carl Edwards, Brad Keselowski at Atlanta situation. Perhaps coming off the banking or whatever the vagaries of the aerodynamics came into play, had a very different scenario there. But an unfortunate deal there. It's going to be interesting what we're going to get coming into the race at Martinsville. Whether NASCAR just wants that settled on the track, kind of like Martinsville was also the one where not only you think about Matt Kenseth's tangle with Joey Logano. I'm sure NASCAR would be a-okay with just kind of letting that. They seem to be, as much as NASCAR penalized Kenseth for that, it's insincere of it in the same blush that they've used it so much in their promotions at the same time and benefited from that in promoting the races at the track. And now, of course, probably in part because of that, have now made it the last cutoff race before Phoenix. That's going to be really something that, that they've benefited from. And I'm sure was something in the back of their mind when they decided whether or not they're going to penalize Rhodes. If they're going to have something be settled there in the last race of the season, it perhaps is going to be something of that nature. Martinsville also at the same time was the track where Richard Brickhouse, after he won Talladega, after the drivers union pulled out of that event, and you had a lot of the different drivers, including Richard Childress, filling out the field in that case, probably the NASCAR's most famous case of field fillers in that particular case. you had Brickhouse get dumped in the first corner of that race, to the point where photographers were told which corner to stand in, that they were going to get a good shot. And indeed, they did get a good shot of Brickhouse being spun out in that sense. So Martinsville's had a long history about something in that that situation there too. But yeah, it's an unfortunate situation with everything that with what happened with Rhodes there, whether or not it's going to get settled out on the track, whether or not Josh Realm is going to get that new truck that he was saying that Thor Sports should be providing. An unfortunate deal there for them. Apparently, Balicki was onto a decent run there. I missed the truck race live there. I had to catch it up afterwards, but it looked like it was going to get a decent finish out of that. And the Realm team, other than the super speedways, they've just been struggling to try to make ends meet here and put together whatever sponsorship they can. Luckily, they've been able to run multiple trucks out there, but different set of circumstances in light of all that too. So we'll see what everything looks up to at that too. Yeah. Oh, did I say something I shouldn't have said, Ultimate 23 Dragon? I heard you were mentioned in the video of Kamikaze Games did. I don't know. I hope I'm not speaking out of school or anything like that, if there was anything that wasn't mentioned in that, but I know he mentioned you specifically. So if there's anything I shouldn't have mentioned there, I apologize, but I heard something about that in his video. So crazy. Yeah. But a crazy situation between all these races. It's unfortunate that the Cup race got pushed this late in the week after we had some pretty crazy racing in Xfinity and trucks. Of course, the Cup Series with what its current package is not putting on necessarily the best show out there. And really, again, having a lot of these underdog teams up there. I mean, even having Christopher Bell up there, he was really about the only one in that same zip code as a lot of the other Toyotas up there. And of course, the waning days of that Toyota contract, making the best out of whatever they can do there. But that was ended up being the story at the same time. Looking at the results here, the Truck Series race, Dylan Lupton getting in the 8th spot there after Haley Deegan made her debut. Tyler Hill just barely missed the top 10 run there in the 11th spot. Jordan Anderson in the 13th spot there. Good to see him bounce back. He's been kind of struggling with some gremlins under the hood here these last few weeks, hoping to end the season on a high note. Dawson Cram getting the 18th spot. Trying to get that team's teething problems out of the way on the number 41. Good to see them get a decent finish, at least under power, finish just ahead of Balicki and Rhodes, as a matter of fact, in the results. But Tim Veens ended up being the last place finisher of that race. Certainly had to, much like the Kirk Shelmerdine video, the political side of it, and I appreciate Beast of Metal. I appreciate you moderating this, kind of keep an eye on things like that. I don't like things getting too political in this show and all that. Try to keep things pretty lighthearted, but obviously, when I write about, Tim Veens being last in these races, or talking about Kirk Shelmerdine there being sponsored by or putting Bush campaign decals on it, you kind of can't not talk about it, but certainly understand, everything going on leading into what's going on this year. But again, kudos to you, Beast of Metal, for riding herd on that too. I do try to keep things pretty light in here. And again, it was kind of a creative writing exercise, writing the Tim Veens piece and even the Kirk Shelmerdine thing too. Not to make too much out of that element of it, but it's an interesting component. Certainly in the Shelmerdine one, there's more details to it. For those of you who haven't seen the video, I won't give that away in this, but definitely recommend you check it out if you haven't already. There's definitely an interesting story in that sense too. Don't worry about it, Sir Art. Yeah, I'm not worried about anybody bringing up Veens or anything like that in the Shelmerdine stream. I thought the chat was perfectly fine in that. There weren't any issues in there, so I'm not looking at anybody in particular on that. And my goodness, I think the fact that we're able to have any kind of discussion of anything this close to the election coming up in a few days, I think is a good indication of anything of what a nice community we do have here. Those of you watching the chat tonight and those of you in the video tonight. So I do thank you for all of that, and hopefully give you a little bit of an island of sanity amidst probably every other video that you're seeing around the YouTube browser right now. In this column over, is it here, camera right or camera left? I mean, you got to figure out which one it is, but wherever it is, coming up to this here. But yeah, anything like that coming into it will be interesting. Oh, Ultimate 23, you're reacting to the Brickhouse thing. Yeah, very interesting. The source on that, there's a documentary that Dave Despain on assignment on Talladega Despain actually talks about that, about Richard Brickhouse and the retaliation at Martinsville. I got some quotes from it in the in an article a while back. I think I did that because I believe he got last as a result of the incident. But if you check out the video, it's Dave Despain on assignment Talladega. Definitely put that in your playlist if you haven't seen that already. I'd recommend checking that out. That was a good video there too. Speaking of good videos, I have another script from NASCAR Man that I'm working on. I haven't recorded it yet. I'll leave it to him to promote it. But very excited to get that recorded now that I got this episode done. So I'm going to be kind of working on getting that script recorded and getting the script written for the next episode, Field Fillers Episode 3. We'll do another premiere for that, and that's going to be really interesting here. In terms of turnaround time, I know I was asked about that in the chat. It's at least a couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, I would say. Realistically, maybe I do one of these a month. I'd like to get them churned out quicker. If it's a shorter episode, I'd be able to produce it quicker. Getting the Shumardine one out of the way first, I think, was most critical because that one I think that one is going to be about as large as they're going to be. You're probably not going to have episodes that are going to be longer than that, which is probably for the best. But we'll have ones of fluctuating length and depending on how much coverage is in there. So if it gets produced sooner, it's probably going to be a shorter episode, but still going to be something that'll be a good follow-up for that as well. Yeah, Dave needs to be on NBC and a Race Hub, Mark Allen. Yeah, I got to agree there. Yeah, Dave Despain's really entertaining. Never had a chance to meet him in person, but he'd be a really fun one to talk to. All right, so we'll get into some trivia. We're already about 41 minutes into this, so I appreciate you guys for sticking around here. If you have any other questions about the video or from the racing this weekend, or this week, rather, definitely go ahead and drop in the comments, and we'll cover that along the way. In the meantime, we'll go ahead and bring this bad boy back out, and we'll get some more questions here. All righty. Dusty DeBoer asking me about eNASCAR iRacing. I followed it more during the break in this season, like a lot of people did. I haven't followed it as much now. I thought about doing something to kind of keep that going on the Last Car site because it was kind of fun. There's always an element of kind of humor in what I do on the site there, and I think I could lean into that a lot more on the sim racing thing since it's nobody. There's no risk of injury and things like that. But no, I haven't really watched too much more. On the of the iRacing thing. I'm open to it. I'm glad there's a good audience for it. I hope that they're doing well, with everything there. It's not really my thing as much, but it's cool that they're out there and getting the views that they have there. And we'll check that out. Yeah. I mean, there's going to have to be a 30 for 30 on the e-racing iNASCAR or iNASCAR e-racing Pro Invitational Series alone, just covering all the craziness from that and how the real world consequences of the virtual world, whether it was people thinking that somebody was a dirty driver or a sponsor thinking that, this driver just quits, then we can't have that. I mean, just absurd everything that happened during that. And I don't know. That would be just a crazy one. But that would be something to see. Alrighty. So whichever category you like, we'll do a few questions here to wrap this up. And again, if you have any other questions on that, we'll jump into that too. How many episodes will Rise of the Field Fillers be? Not sure yet. It could be. I don't know. It could be. It depends on how many. I want to do it kind of team by team, but there's some of them I may lump together. So I don't want to put a number out there that's going to be too high. Certainly more than 5, I would say that. More than that. So it's not going to be ending anytime soon. And by that, I don't mean not just episode-wise, but time-wise. It may be something that I kind of continue to do on there. I have pretty much decided to just focus on that in terms of my YouTube content. I think that's an easier way to do that in the short term. And then just kind of focus on doing that series rather than doing the standalones. If a standalone idea comes along, that would be something that I would probably jump into. That would be something I'd consider. But after I did the slap shoes video, I had another idea that kind of was working for a standalone, but I don't think it was going to be as good as this. So I've been kind of waiting to see if there's a good standalone on that, and we'll kind of go from there. So that'll be the situation on that. Alrighty. So again, we're going to pick categories. Whichever category you like, we'll go ahead and chime in the comments. NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Okay. NASCAR, pits, teams, tracks, drivers, and the wild card. Whichever category you like. I'm going to take another sip from the chalice here while you guys pick. Oh, goodness. Man, I stayed up entirely too late the other day finishing that video. I'm glad it came out, though, because here's the thing that happened. And I appreciate, again, those